Would you like to find out where there is a great four-wheel drive camping spot with views and ancient art in the Flinders Ranges, and it's not crowded? This channel is about looking at four-wheel drive camping spots around Australia which are not as well known as some of the more touristy spots. If you have any questions about the locations or even the photography, please let me know in the comments below, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Most people travelling the road between Wilpena to Arkaroola in the Flinders Ranges will not even realise that they are passing Chambers Gorge. It's a great spot, offering both ancient landscapes and excellent examples of Aboriginal rock art. With only a short 16-kilometre return detour, you can drop in there for a day trip or camp for longer. And I'd recommend camping. It's some great views and great sunsets. The turn off to Chambers Gorge can be easily missed, so keep an eye out for it. It'll be on the right hand side if you're travelling north, and on the left hand side if you're travelling south. The track leaves the main road and heads east, with Mount Chambers standing out from the flat plains. We saw some emus that seemed to be marking the spot to turn off. It's only a few kilometres before the track drops into the normally dry Chambers Creek. Like many places in the Flinders Ranges, the creek beds are the easiest ways to traverse through the rugged ranges. Knowing what the weather is likely to do in the next few hours or days of your stay would be really helpful, as the track would become impassable after a heavy storm upstream. It is likely that even if it hasn't rained for a while, there will be some water in the creek, requiring a wet creek crossing. The creek beds are full of rocks, so getting bogged is very unlikely, but don't expect to drink any of the water out of the creek because it can be quite stagnant and fairly salty as well. There are at least 4 creek crossings, with the last one seeming to be the deepest. At times the track runs along the creek bed, which can be up to 100 metres wide, giving an indication of the amount of water that can flow down this creek. As the track and creek winds its way through the Waring Hills, Mount Chambers at 409 metres high starts to loom closer. The landscape is typically rugged of the Flinders Ranges, with the cliffs looking like ramparts of a hilltop castle. Depending on the season, there may be some Sturt's desert peas by the track. These will be dwarfed by some of the huge river gums that line the edges of the creek bank. A sign can be found on a small rise along the track that details where the 4 camping areas are, as well as some of the other information about exploring the area. We chose a campsite by the creek, which gave us great views of the cliffs and Mount Chambers to the west. The campsites are not marked, but there are plenty of flat spots to put up a tent. The ground is very rocky, so a tarp or a ground sheet under your tent would be a good idea. There are plenty of old fireplaces to warm the camp on a cold winter's night, but the property owners ask you to bring your own firewood rather than collecting it from around the camp. Now, the camp is actually on a working property, and it is free to camp there, so please bring all your wood, all your water, and take your rubbish with you. It's best to arrive mid-afternoon so you can set up camp, and at dusk watch the great sunsets and the colour changes on Mount Chambers. The late afternoon light on the cliffs leading up to Mount Chambers can turn the rock to a deep red against the twilight hues of the sky. The view can be enjoyed from the comfort of camp, or by walking on some of the small hills overlooking the creek just near camp. This alone makes it worth spending a night there. Not far from the last campsite is the parking area, which marks the start of the walking track to the Aboriginal carvings. The walk is relatively short at only about 750 metres, so it should be on the list of things while visiting the area. At the entrance to the side gorge, where the engravings can be found, there is an interpretive sign which gives meaning to many of the symbols that have been made in the rock. The artwork shows that the initiation ceremonies were conducted in the gorge. Others show symbols from daily life of the local Indigenous people before the arrival of the Europeans. Determining the age of the artwork is not possible due to the way it was created. This was done by either repeatedly hitting the rock with sharp objects, forming lots of small pits, that make up a larger artwork, or by grinding grooves into the rock. The number of engravings are large and more than you'll probably see anywhere else in the Flinders Ranges. The bend in the small gorge, where most of the engravings are found, is particularly beautiful, with a large flat area which is where the ceremonies would have most likely taken place. The peak of Mount Chambers can be seen rising in the south. After leaving the small gorge, Mount Chambers Creek is a very enjoyable walk downstream. It winds its way through ever-increasing cliffs which rise above the mostly dry creek bed. We walked down the creek for a couple of kilometres, but would have liked to have continued further on, as it is beautiful and rugged. In the 1990s, lucky four-wheel drivers were able to drive the length of the gorge, but this is now prohibited. Unfortunately, these days, walking shoes are needed to see some of the most spectacular parts of the gorge. If you are after more four-wheel driving, Mulga View Station is only about 8 kilometres away once you're back on the main road. Mount Chambers Gorge is a great spot to visit if only passing by, and it's even a better spot if you can spend the night or two there to enjoy the sunsets on Mount Chambers. It is one of the best secret spots in the Flinders Ranges. On the trip where you've seen these photos taken, I've actually visited there twice. First on just a day trip in there to see what it was like, because it was very difficult to find reliable information on it. The second was to go and camp there, and it was well worth the time spent there. And in fact, I'd like to go there a third time and walk a lot further down the gorge. So it's certainly a great spot and well worth visiting. And in terms of crowds, there aren't any. So it's really good. Okay, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and we'll see you at the next spot. Thank you.